Kurt Gödel and the Limits of Formal Logic. Well, first of all, we read a few passages from this book. Chapter 11. Just as the Vienna Circle aimed to give primacy to science as a means of finding truth, they also set out to modernize mathematics and logic. The story of how they failed, of how they tried and failed, and that of the remarkable genius who showed that their ambition was doomed to miscarriage, has shaped the modern world as much as any philosophical system ever has. We all know what mathematics is. There is the world of numbers and the myriad operations that can be performed on them. There is a world of geometric forms and how they're structured and can evolve. Much of mathematics can be learned through rote exercises, and to develop theories about numbers to prove mathematical concepts, one must enter into the realm of formal logic and logical truth. Example is the symmetric axiom, which states that things on opposite sides of an equal signs are the same. So if A equals B, then B equals A. The transitive axiom states that A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. Equivalent to Euclid's statement in geometry, things that are equal to the same thing are also equal to one another. I'm skipping a few paragraphs here. In 1920, the great German mathematician David Hilbert announced a program that itemized what he considered to be the most important challenges for studying mathematics on firm foundations. Hilbert supported the use of a formal language of symbols to write mathematical statements and proofs. The success and validity of any axiomatic system and the proof of its many theorems, he said, were to be judged on a particular criteria. These criteria stated that a system must be consistent within itself, meaning that it cannot paradoxically contradict itself by simultaneously proving some theorem to be both true and not true. The system also has to be complete, meaning that it has to have within itself the means of proving that every true statement about the system is indeed true. The system that makes up arithmetic, for example, must contain within itself the means to prove every true statement about arithmetic. Consistency and completeness were now the seals of success for any mathematical system. The Vienna Circle's mission was completely in accord with Hilbert's program. Enter the small, fine-featured, bespectacled figure of a still young Kurt Gödel, who would one day become known as the greatest logician since Aristotle, if not indeed the greatest of all time. All right. So, I could continue on, but then that would defeat the purpose of this wonderful show here. So I suppose one thing is that Leonard Kramer actually has given me, which seems he's able to actually put back on, has given me a passage to read. So I will read that a little bit. Let me see. Pause this actually. Pause the background. All right. So he refused. So talked about the Vienna Circle a little bit, what axioms are. But on a personal note, starting from this, so he refused to eat unless his wife tasted his food first. And when she was gone, he starved to death, convinced he was being poisoned. But this wasn't just a paranoid man. This was Kurt Gödel, the logician who discovered something no one else had, that truth itself has limits, and some things can never be proven, no matter how hard we try.
Whoa.
And continue with that. Okay, since you made the comment already, Leonard, we might as well have you here. So, but first of all, what are we doing here, sir?
I was wondering about that. I had a little bit of technical issue with the.
I know you disappeared on this virtual world.
Well, this is live, you know. So.
But it's okay. Wasn't going to bring you on immediately anyway. But for those who don't know, this at least we're calling it for SG2 in space, or in the future we may change the name of the show a little bit, but for right now that's still what it is.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Of course, Leonard.
I didn't know that. Is that what you've been thinking?
Certain someone has suggested something. But first of all, I would like to say you know, for those who are watching, this is actually we've done one episode on this before. About 50 episodes ago, we did talk about. Thank you. I will not be rubbing my nose again. Thank you for that very obvious note. About 50 episodes ago, we did do an episode on incompleteness theorem and Kurt Gödel, but he is a fascinating man, and there's a lot to talk about. So let's revisit him.
Absolutely.
So Kurt Gödel revisited The Man Who Broke Mathematics, episode 226. I'm here. I'm Shin Gut, and this is Leonard Kramer here. For those of you who think you can support the show as a free or paid member by going to patreon.com/c/ or actually you should just go to /SG2 on space. And thank you to our donors, Kyle Baker and John Graves. Also, the opening music, which was playing earlier, was kindly made by Chip Burge. So thank you to him as well. And I will actually put a note later on.
That's a nice touch.
Where you can find his other works, actually, since he's made other things. So with all that said, I read a few passages from this book, as well as a little bit of what Leonard, of what you wrote up. I didn't quite get to the part where he basically, stopped eating, but maybe we should take it back a step on what was going on in that time and who exactly is he?
Okay, so Kurt Gödel, hardly anybody's really heard of him, I guess, in the popular imagination, but I guess where can we start? So Kurt Gödel, I'll just start from the beginning.
Yeah, so
I will say, he was born in Austria-Hungary in 1906.
Yep. Hence, I did mention the Vienna Circle a bit. So,
and from an early age, he was known as Mr. Y. His father, his father called Herr Warum, I guess, Herr Warum, in German, and that was because it was a nickname that his family gave him because he just asked endless questions, and it was more than just like the ordinary thing that a little toddler or a young child would be asking why. He had a restless curiosity that just never left him. His brother was named Rudolf, and Rudolf, same last name, and he later became a physician, and he described his brother Kurt as abnormally curious and introspective. And he probably had what we call Asperger or something on the autism spectrum, although he did seem to be able to, socialize with people and have friendships, and he was committed to his wife.
Sorry, go on.
So as a young man, Gödel studied mathematics at the University of Vienna, and that was during a time when the foundations of math and logic were being rigorously examined. And you mentioned Kurt Gödel. I'm sorry, you mentioned
the Vienna Circle.
David Hilbert.
And David
now,
Hilbert,
yeah. Now the people in the Vienna Circle, they were important as a group of people who were. What were they really trying to do? They had a program to sort of formalize logic and that sort of thing. So I would say they were trying to the Vienna Circle was trying to reduce logic, reduce knowledge to pure logic and observation and empiricism. Mm-hmm. And what Gödel did that was so revolutionary and so important was that he set about to prove that the whole worldview, that whole project had a really significant blind spot in it, and we're going to get into that. It's to me, it's very interesting, and it speaks to things having to do with artificial intelligence today and our project to understand the world, to take data and use algorithms to decide things, and that kind of project. So in his mid-20s, as part of his doctoral work, Gödel produced what became known as the famous incompleteness theorems. It's a pair of results that would just rock the foundations of mathematics. and sort of punctured the dream of David Hilbert, as it were. It was it would echo far beyond that, and he did it almost silently, without any fanfare or revolution. Just a precise, elegant proof. So,
just giving some context here. So he was pretty active in the Vienna Circle at that time, right? And then what did he
wasn't. I don't understand what it means to be a member of the Vienna Circle. It seems like it was a privileged club, but he attended their meetings. Let's put it that way. He just like Karl Popper that we talked about, and Ludwig Wittgenstein. They were not members of it, but they were influenced by it. So, and I'm not going to pretend like I know a lot about the Vienna Circle. So, but it's something that comes up a lot in the.
That's fine. We're not here to talk about the Vienna Circle. Okay, go on. Sorry.
I was going to say, as brilliant as he was intellectually, he struggled deeply with mental health issues throughout his life. And from early adulthood, he suffered a lot from chronic anxiety, depression. He used to obsess about his health. He must have been, what do you call somebody that's always talking about hypochondriac?
Hypochondriac, that'd be what it is.
He must have been, I don't remember them saying hypochondriac, but it must have been what he was. He was convinced at various times that his stomach was sick. He had liver problems. He always thought somebody was poisoning him, and he was known to produce medical literature, and he would read about all of the symptoms that he had. So he definitely had some complex of some sort. So over time, it actually grew pretty severe, and he developed a near total distrust of doctors, and eventually a fear that people were trying to poison him. But strangely, his wife, Adele, was.
How did he meet his wife?
I don't know that, but it was something that I want to say it was a little bit scandalous, because she was a dancer.
Oh man.
And that was not, and that's what I know about her. I'm getting a scam call. Goodbye, scam call.
Okay, it's great to get a scam call. You should put them on the show, like on the live podcast. Would that be funny?
Yeah, you've seen those YouTube videos. This is a side. You've seen those YouTube videos where people like troll them.
Yeah.
Well, I've actually done that. It's a great triumph.
I'm not surprised.
And I don't feel bad about that. I don't feel bad about that. I don't think they should be doing that.
They're not really doing that great for you. So
no.
But
I
if you get another scam call, you can, or spam call, you can.
Yeah, that's all right. Over time, his that hypochondria that really developed into a real significant problem. I don't think he ever really had a formal psychiatric diagnosis in today's terms. So he probably wasn't schizophrenic or really delusional. Probably didn't have a delusional disorder, but nearly everyone close to him recognized that he was really slipping and getting into real psychological isolation. And near the end of his life in the 1970s, when his wife Adele became ill, she had a stroke. And the stroke happened probably in 1976 or 1977. I really couldn't pin that down, and I don't think it was all that important. But she had to be hospitalized and wasn't able to take care of him anymore. And he was in this thing where he only allowed her to cook for him, and she would taste his food. So
I guess I want to take a step back in the sense that okay. Like you're talking about years later, right? When he was
I'm just trying to draw the picture of who this guy was.
You're sketching the overall picture of the guy's life, and then we're gonna dive into more details.
Yes, we're gonna be talking about David Hilbert, and we're gonna go back in time to the 20s and 30s.
Okay, that's right.
He died in 1978 in Princeton, and he was just 65 pounds.
He was he died from starvation, no, since he was
There
afraid
wasn't
everybody was trying to kill him.
there wasn't an autopsy, which was a little. I thought that was a little funny. I'm not even sure that's true, uh, because of peculiar circumstances. But the death certificate says malnutrition and inanition, which is exhaustion from the lack of nutrition, and a secondary cause was what they just said was personality disturbance. So this will give you something, something to talk or something to think about. And yet, this was the same mind that had seen further into the structure of logic than anyone before or since. It's a breakthrough. It's a heartbreaking paradox that this man who illuminated the limits, literally the limits of reason. I mean, it just blows my mind. In the end, he was kind of consumed by his own reason, as it were. So there's sort of a recursion, and recursion kind of comes into the recursion, meaning self-reference and that sort of thing. So that was sort of Gödel, from a sketch of Gödel from the beginning of his life, Mr. Y. As a child, they called him Mr. Y, and all the way to descent into paranoid and neurosis and so forth. Einstein.
Yes.
Why did I say Einstein and Gödel? Yeah. At Princeton's Institute for Advanced Study, that's where some of the greatest minds of the 20th century kind of worked behind closed doors. Einstein, von Neumann, and Oppenheimer, that we all know about, were there. But in his later years, Einstein started, I think Einstein was getting tired. Einstein died in 1955, and he was
tired of just working there.
I think in the last 5-10 years of his life, he really was not very productive. But he did say that the only reason he went to the office was so that he could walk home with Kurt Gödel. They were great friends.
That's extremely high, admiration for Gödel from Einstein.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The two men were so different in temperament. Einstein was sort of warm and sociable, although we have criticized Einstein for his womanizing and what a lousy father he was and terrible husband.
So there's there is a link on the Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton on Gödel, so you can put it on the comments.
So,
go on.
Gödel was neurotic and withdrawn and anxious. But they found in each other a kind of intellectual companionship, I would say. They were known to walk around the wooded paths of Princeton together. I think you can see some iconic photographs of them walking together. Or there's a photograph that exists of Gödel in a suit and tie, and Einstein in a straw hat and jeans and an open shirt. Looks like the gardener.
I will find that and put it here.
But they would discuss time, space, logic, and even metaphysics. And Gödel, for his part, also admired Einstein's work on general relativity. He didn't just admire it; he extended it.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't?
Gödel in 1949 really shocked Einstein because he produced a new solution to the field equations. That's a model of a rotating universe in which time can loop back on itself.
You see this?
Yeah, there it is. Yes, this is Gödel and the groundskeeper.
You mean the groundskeeper Einstein? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great picture.
So Gödel looks okay there. Einstein kind of looks okay too. So,
yeah, both of them look like they're having a good time. That's a nice picture. Thanks for winning. All right, look back to what you were saying.
Gödel produced a solution to Einstein's field equations for a rotating universe, and it sort of produced a solution that showed time travel was possible, at least mathematically, and not in a science fiction-y sense, but it's like the Einstein kind of looked at that solution and kind of speculated that the distinction between past, present, and future are an illusion, and we have some ideas that are developing today with the holographic universe and other things that we could talk about that someday. But anyway, it was a rare friendship. It was rooted not just in brilliance, but in a shared wonder of the very nature of reality.
The very nature of reality, indeed.
Yeah, very nature of reality. So Gödel first visited the United States in 1933 briefly. I don't know. I don't remember if Einstein. I think Einstein was there in 33, and he emigrated permanently in 1940. With he and Adele visiting, and actually their trip to the United States was pretty interesting. They left Austria after the Anschluss, which was when Germany annexed Austria.
Yeah, right.
And
that
so
was a very interesting time then.
Gödel was not Jewish, but he hung out with liberal minded people in that circle.
He probably would have gotten in trouble if he stayed.
He was not ethnically persecuted. He wasn't persecuted because of his ethnicity. But his ideas were considered subversive. Anything abstract, that kind of thing, the Nazis were not up for. They were
right. I mean, I wouldn't. Yeah, like they're not
blood and soil.
Blood and soil.
Yeah,
it sounds like a terribly. Yeah, never mind. I'm not.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's great that he came to America and didn't stay over there.
So the trip that followed the Trans-Siberian Railway, across Russia, across Soviet Union, all the way to the drop-off point, and I guess by boat to Japan. So he was in Japan for a little bit, and then across the Pacific to San Francisco, and then all the way to New Jersey. And that was his trip there. And so he got a position with Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton, with the influence of Einstein, of course, and von Neumann. So that's what I wanted to say about that. Now, Hilbert. Okay.
Yes.
So
going back to Hilbert was one of the greatest logicians, no?
That's right. Hilbert was very important. He was a German mathematician and one of the most influential figures of the 20th century. In fact, Hilbert was influential with Einstein in the 1915 when Einstein was trying to crack general relativity. Hilbert and Einstein were almost contemporaneously coming up with the general relativity model. So that gives you an idea of the stature of David Hilbert. He believed that mathematics could be made perfectly secure. And one of the things I read was that he wanted a fortress built on logic. He launched and became what's known as the Hilbert's program. And it was a project to formalize all of mathematics, reducing it to a fixed set of axioms and rules. And the goal was kind of simple in a theoretical sense, because first, you want to define all the rules of mathematics in precise logical terms, and then prove that these rules were both complete, meaning every proposition can be proved from ultimately from the axioms of the system, and also it was consistent, so that look, he's one of our people. Look at him
wearing a dashing hat. At least that's what it says on Wikipedia.
And a dashing hat, and he's got a yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it looks a little more dorky, but that's okay.
That's the style back then. Got to wear those spectacles.
I'm there. I'm there already.
Mathematical Institute. Okay. Anyways.
Yeah, there are people. No worries.
That's him. That's the son. David Hilbert. That's his grave. All right. So okay.
So every mathematical statement can be proven, and that all these mathematical systems are consistent, meaning that there's no contradictions. In other words, you can't prove that 1 equals 2, for example. So this is deemed Hilbert's dream, and he envisioned mathematics as
you mathematically be able to prove everything.
Prove it. And he envisioned the mathematics, or he wanted to prove that mathematics was a perfect machine, and that once the system was built, you could feed it questions. You feed questions in, and then it'll crank out answers like gears turning. So there's nothing ambiguous. There's no gaps. And he was famous for saying something like, "There are no unprovable propositions. We must know. We will know." It's like I don't know, some kind of.
I mean, on his tombstone, I can't. Do you know German? How do you say this? Göttingen, whatever. That's where his tombstone is.
His tombstone says in German the terms "we must know, we will know."
Where müssen wissen. I'm completely saying it wrong since I don't know German. But basically, he was. We must know, we shall know. That was from his apparently a famous retirement speech given on September 8th, 1930, and that's on his tombstone. So
I believe that was a keynote address at this conference in Königsberg. Königsberg doesn't exist anymore. It's called Kaliningrad these days. So it's Russian. It's Russian territory. It's a Russian. Well, never mind about that. But anyway,
But
after World War very quickly after World War II, the Russians captured Königsberg, and they threw out all the Germans and they populated it with Russians, and then they changed its name to Kaliningrad. So anyway,
his speech where he said where he ended it with "We must know and we shall know." That was given in what was formerly Königsberg to
Königsberg.
Sorry. Okay. All right.
Königsberg Conference of 1930, and Hilbert.
Right.
So a little aphorism.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say Gödel also gave a paper at this conference.
Really? Was Hilbert aware of how Gödel was going to demolish?
I don't think Gödel was only 25 years old. Okay. Hilbert was 70 something,
right?
And and so Hilbert was the head of the conference and made a keynote.
That makes sense. So yeah, Hilbert thought, well, we're on our way to figure everything out, but then Gödel comes along and does what?
And showed that the dream was not just fragile; it was impossible. So that's what we're going to talk about next.
Let's talk about his incompleteness.
So the little phrase that you can think of from the Königsberg conference was Hilbert could be summarized as saying, "We will know." Okay. And Gödel said, "We will actually know. We won't."
Right.
So actually let's talk about what is a formal system. Okay, because
let's dive into some logic and math here. Let's go.
Okay, so at its core, a formal system is like a logical game. In fact, the game of chess is a formal system.
Exactly.
Right.
Because certain rules. Right. Yeah, and there's legal moves, and there's things. There's only certain things you can do with certain pieces.
That's exactly right. And so there's 1, 2, 3 symbols, 2 rules, and 3 axioms. Those are the basic starting truths you assume. So for chess, it's the beginning game, right? Yeah. The way it's all set up. And then the rules are the way the pieces can move. And then actually, it's not just the pieces that are the symbols. It's actually the state of the board that's sort of the symbols in some respect. But the pieces and the way they can move. I think that's a very good way to picture that. So the pieces are the symbols, and the rules for movement is logic, right? And the initial setup is like the axioms. And once the rules are fixed, you can analyze every possible outcome and move by move without needing to guess or rely on intuition. So everything is mechanical. And I guess you can kind of understand Hilbert. Let me see. That's what he wanted. He wanted mathematics to be complete. In that respect,
that makes sense to be able to want to reduce it to that level.
Yes,
any mathematician's dream.
I think we can have some sympathy for that. Okay, but but stay with me. Stay connected here.
Stay.
Okay? All right. so they're not just academic curiosities. They're the backbone of how we build logic, arithmetic, geometry, and computer programs. That's what computer programs are all about. And so it boiled down to so a formal system. David Hilbert's dream was to make it clean, complete, and kind of airtight. But Gödel's insight was surrounded or centered on this idea of, yeah, sure, you can have these formal systems, but what happens when the system is powerful enough to start talking about itself? Okay. In other words, that gets into the idea of self-reference or recursion, right? And that's the point where things start to get strange. Some of the uncontested, so let me go back to the formal system. Some of the uncontested examples of formal systems is what's called regular arithmetic. Like arithmetic that you learn as a child.
1 + 1 is 2, right? And what I said, like, and if 5 = 5, then that's what it is.
That's called Paino arithmetic, and it's named after somebody named Paino.
Paino?
I want to say Giuseppe Paino, but everybody who's Italian and I can't remember their name is a Giuseppe.
Wait, is a Peano?
Yeah.
Right? Whatever. Paino. Okay,
it's
this thing.
Yeah.
Paino.
So this is formal math. This is the formal arithmetic of natural numbers, right? So we also know about another example is Euclidean geometry, and then various other kinds of propositional logic, like truth tables, if then else, I should also mention Turing machines and some other things like that. So but I wanted to also point out that the human brain, so a computer is a formal system, one of the computers, but the human brain, this is controversial now. I mean, if
all right, tell me what you're thinking about the human brain.
Well, if you define a formal system as a rule-based system of symbols manipulated according to precise syntactic rules, then not only are digital computers formal systems, but if the human brain is just part of a physical machine that's processing symbols, then yes, you could consider the brain as a formal system. I'll pause. And then I'll say, Gödel didn't think that.
He did not
think that. Gödel believed that the human mind cannot be reduced to formal systems because the human brain can see truths of certain propositions that formal systems can't prove. And that was what was very revolutionary about his theorem. This has been taken up recently by Roger Penrose, who you've heard me mention before, who thinks that human consciousness is not a computation.
Got Roger Penrose's book right here, Wampus, The Road Reality. All right. Anyways, go on.
Roger Penrose is awesome. Okay. You don't want to cross him logically, but I mean, he seems a very gracious guy, but Penrose used Gödel's theorem. And in fact, listening to some YouTube videos and also reading one of Penrose's books.
Which one? Which one are you quoting from?
The Emperor's New Mind.
Emperor's New Mind. Okay, go on.
And Penrose used Gödel's theorem as part of the case, and that's one of the things that I always knew kind of vaguely about Gödel. Yeah, there's this guy Gödel, and he did something really important, but I was never. I really got interested in it after I read and listened to Penrose about it. So Gödel's theorem was part of Penrose's case that the human mind has insights that transcend algorithmic. You know what algorithm means? Algorithm means following rules, right?
Following rules. Yeah.
So this is important. So the counterpoint is a mechanist viewpoint and this has to do with artificial intelligence and computer science.
Who's interested in reading Roger Penrose, here's You can find it on Oxford University Press for $22.
He has a lot of. I think you can just pick it up on Amazon. Oh, but books from Amazon don't have a soul, do they?
I mean, some people don't think so, and I like to go to the original publisher. So,
okay,
for folks who want to use Amazon, you can also find it there.
But
this is really interesting. Okay, so Roger Penrose. Sorry to interrupt. Continue.
Oh no, that's all right. I was just going to say and we don't even really want to talk about buying the Kindle version. That's a completely soulless version of the book. Ideally you'd want a book that had already been read by somebody, you've been thumbed through, and has little marginal notes.
Hey, when I get done with this book, whenever I finish, this is like 900 pages. I sell it, and it will make sure it will have a soul, since it will have a bunch of my scrawlings in there.
I opened a book that I got several years ago, and I opened it up to one page, and there was a perfectly preserved leaf of cannabis between the pages.
I bet you did not get that on Amazon.
Now that book had soul.
That book really has soul right there.
It must have been there for 30 years. Okay, nobody had opened it, and it was still green. You know, it was perfectly.
Wow, that's pretty good preservation right there.
Not that I've ever seen. You know, I just knew it was cannabis because
you've never seen such a thing. Like no, yeah, you just took a cloud.
So if human reason seems to go beyond formal systems, then it could be an illusion of complexity,
right,
and not really a fundamental difference.
Gödel, so he was thinking about these. How did he even come up with this? I guess he was just thinking about it.
I think that's a really good question. Okay, so this is the incompleteness system, incompleteness theorems.
Yeah, Gödel's incompleteness theorem. Right.
So Gödel had a trick. He constructed a statement that says, "quote I'm not provable." Mm-hmm. So and this was just opened the door, because afterwards other mathematicians have extended this further, but Gödel's was so important because it kind of broke open the door to this notion. And so how do we arrive at Gödel's most famous, most unsettling discovery, which is the incompleteness theorem? So in 1931, he's just 25 years old, and he published the paper at the same conference
that Hilbert was holding. Yes,
that Hilbert was holding. Was doing the keynote express. So what he's saying, in any formal system that's powerful enough to do basic arithmetic, there will always be true statements that can't be proven within the system itself. Right. And so what he did was, I didn't really prepare enough to really explain what he did, and I probably have to go back and refresh my memory exactly.
Let me see. The Encyclopedia of, let me see if I can hear. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy has a human readable version of these proofs.
So
there's basically two incompleteness theorems, right? I mean, apparently.
So there's two. They have to do with the fact that that a formal system cannot be complete, and if it's not complete, it's also not consistent.
Can you explain what consistent means?
Consistent means that you can prove something. If it's inconsistent, then you can prove that something's false, or no, you can prove something that's both true and false. So consistency, so I think it's a very in the very simple sense that we think about that.
I mean, most things we think are like, for it to make sense, it is consistent, right?
Right. Yeah. And in fact, if you can show that something is
inconsistent,
inconsistent means that you've proved something that's manifestly false, or it's both true and false. So that would be an inconsistent system.
The first incompleteness theorem says any consistent formal system F within which a certain amount of elementary arithmetic can be carried out is incomplete, i.e. there are statements of the language of F which can neither be proved nor disproved in F.
That's right. And so what he did was he encoded logic as arithmetic. So people can, maybe we can talk about like Gödel numbering. He used he used prime numbers. He took prime numbers and then he raised them to a power. And so every proposition can be decomposed into, if you have a bunch of symbols, even letters that connect each other, you could number them with just in immensely huge numbers, like numbers with thousands of digits in them. And so he used prime numbers as like a basis set, and the exponent of them as
you're talking about the Gödel numbering.
The Gödel numbering system.
Yeah.
And showed that the arithmetic having to do with those. So every logical system and any even using language could be reduced to a numeric arithmetic. So he encoded the logic as arithmetic, and then he wrote some statements about provability, what inside the arithmetic.
This is pretty fascinating.
Then he created some self-referential statement like, this statement is false. This statement is false. Okay. Well, if it's false, then it's not true. But if it's true, then it's false. So and he proved that such statements must exist and that no formal system can escape them. And the result was airtight, mechanical, is entirely within the language of mathematics itself. And so what does it mean? It means that there will always be mathematical truths that exist beyond the reach of formal truth. And Gödel showed, he said truth basically in a formal system is bigger than proof. And so we have this idea, if the mind is a computer, then it means that, but it's also a formal system, but it means that there are truths that can emerge from, this is a little bit way out there, but if the mind is a formal system, then potentially, at least, not necessarily, but potentially, there are truths that can come from your mind, come out of your mind, that are not provable, right? They are true, but they're not provable from within the mind itself. And so that gets,
I can think of something that is true from my head, and I cannot prove that it is true just based on what is inside my head.
So your mind wasn't just operating on the inputs to it. So remember when sometimes we'll talk about free will.
Oh, no. How is this related to free will now?
In a world where everything is provable, maybe not everything is predetermined either. Gödel believed in objective truth, but he also believed the mind could grasp truths that no machine or formal system ever could. That opens the door.
So wait a minute. So you're saying, okay, like a computer that we're running the show on, that is based on a formal system. Whereas our human minds, Gödel was saying, is not like a computer. It's not based on a formal system. It's because we can come up with truths that is.
Gödel was wandering around through life thinking about this. He was committed to this, that there are truths that exist that are not part of watching getting information from TV, which is where we get most of our information.
Well, you could be watching podcasts.
Video games are the worst thing. One of the things I noticed is like so many people are playing video games.
Don't put down video games. I play video games.
Well, I don't know, Shen. Birth rates are dropping. People don't even really seem to know how to have sex anymore. That has nothing
to do with video games, sir. But
if you're always on a video game, you're not going to have time to go out on a date.
Oh my goodness. Okay, we're going off tangent. That could be another topic of discussion another time. But
so I would love to talk about it. That opens the door just a crack to free will. In other words, if there are truths,
okay. So a computer, for instance, whatever truth it could derive, whatever it comes up with, it's always based on inputs that goes in there, and then but you're saying human mind, it doesn't matter. Like we come up with things that are not necessarily, that's not within if our brain was a formalized system, then we would be constrained in what we can come up with. I suppose that's another way of putting it.
No. Okay, so even if our brain is a formal system, okay, there potentially exist truths, actually an infinite number of things that are true that we don't derive from the mechanism, the machinery that's running in our brain. Okay. So now I can't develop it. I can't develop it any further than that. I don't really. Okay. It's just a suggestion.
All right. So even if our brain is a formal system, there's like any formal system, like what Gödel was saying, there's going to be truth that can't be proven by whatever axioms there are in the formal system. Mm-hmm. So how does that lead you to even saying that, okay, our brains are not a formal system? Like what's the difference?
I'm not saying it's not a formal system. It's not a formal system. Even if I think we don't have problems with saying it's a formal system because it's just made out of matter. It's just, it's doing all these things. A lot of people think that there's something metaphysical or spiritual or something like that. And this is a doorway into affirming that.
Okay.
People will get upset. Well, you're just reducing it to mathematics. And I go, well, if you tell me there's a God, okay, and I don't mean to say that in a pejorative way. If you tell me that there's a God and that this God can do things that are, like miraculous things, I'm going to start saying, well, how does it work? How does he do it? And so the criticism of that, well, it's just a mystery. Okay, well, I'm not. Look, fine, it's just a mystery, but that doesn't stop me from asking the questions about how does it work? What's going on inside?
Say this book or this pen suddenly started levitating, and I'm like, okay, God is doing this.
Right.
You would be wondering, how does that work, right? There must be a physical explanation.
How does God, can I speak to him? And well, of course you can. Will he answer? Well, that depends.
Right.
I don't want to talk about that. I want to know, I just, and so one of the things I encounter, because I've said before, there's no free will. We're deterministic machines. Right.
Yes, and for any viewers watching, we did a whole episode on that a while ago.
Our behavior is determined by what we see on television.
Oh my gosh!
Right. So you turn the television on, and then one day you turn the TV on, and you switch, you get one of the channels. Okay, and that channel will hook you. Right. They'll get you. They'll tell you a whole set of axioms about how the world works. Right. And that's just one channel. There's another channel that has another set of axioms. And then you watch that, and then we disagree about stuff. It's because we're not all watching the same channel. Right. So that's why I say there's no free will. Or do I? I'm confusing you.
A little bit, I suppose. And I do feel like we're going off tangent, but maybe it's
no, we're not. No, this is really important because this was so important to Gödel that he starved himself to death.
Okay. All right. So, but I don't. Did we finish talking about his other second incompleteness theorem, or were you just saying?
They're both related in that respect. They're both kind of connected together. One has to do with consistency, and the other one has to do with
let me just quickly bring this up.
Right.
So the second one was assume F is a consistent formalized system which contains elementary arithmetic.
Yeah.
That F, I do not know what the symbol is. Actually,
I don't know.
The consistency of F. Okay.
So anyway, I'm saying two things. Like I'm being advocate for both sides, as it were. So about free will and so forth. But let me get back to what we were talking about. So not all truths can be proven. and so our world is almost, I would say, our world, when you are watching television, okay, it's a world that's obsessed with answers. You want to get answers to things, and there's data, and everybody wants to be certain, and they have an algorithm that cranks the data and gives out an answer about what we should do. Gödel reminds us with this incompleteness theorem that some things lie beyond formal logic. That should make the metaphysical people very happy. It should make religious people happy.
I mean,
right?
I've always thought that there's things that cannot be derived with just pure logic.
So. But Gödel put it to, Gödel proved it.
Gödel used logic to prove that logic cannot prove everything.
That's right. I think that's kind of accurate, but it's sort of a mystery.
Right.
So it's not just a limitation. It's actually there's a kind of central mystery there. Just like in quantum mechanics, we have a central mystery. So it suggests that truth is bigger than any system that we can build, and that even in mathematics, the most precise kind of language that we have, there are can we say shadows? And
how poetic.
But,
yeah.
Okay. So Gödel was a Platonist, and actually I've kind of gotten ahead of myself. The fallout from this theorem that was immediate, and Hilbert's program with its ambition and optimism collapsed.
It collapsed immediately since Gödel showed, well, you can't even do it, so why even try?
Hilbert surely was aware of this, but he was kind of done with his career, and he just kind of faded into obscurity. I think he died in 1943. He never left Germany, but the Nazis left him alone. They didn't putter with him. But his dream of a complete airtight foundation for all of mathematics was no longer tenable. And and basically, no matter how clever the axioms, no matter how rigorous the logic, there would always be true mathematical statements that we simply could not prove. And this is not just a bug in the system; it's a fundamental limit.
How do you know something is true then if it can't be proved?
Well, I didn't pursue it that far, but Gödel had language, had propositions that he had constructed with his numbering system that would say things like, this statement is false. Okay. So
that seems paradoxical to me.
Because we can look at that and say that proposition is clearly inside the formal system, but it's not constructed from the logic, the propositions that are attached to it. Here's another example that I kind of invented myself. The game of chess is a formal system. All right. And so we already talked about axioms at the beginning game were white and black and how you arrange them. And then but you can construct propositions, meaning the state of the board, where, like, for example, you could have a pawn that's advanced past another pawn, conditions of the board that cannot be arrived at, and yet you can continue to play logically from a particular state. So it's in the system, but you would never be able to get into that state from the beginning game. So that's an example. That was an example that I kind of invented to try to illustrate it. And so Gödel discovered this, that logic would always contain blind spots, and certainty, true absolute certainty, was now off the table. And
can you explain that chess thing again? So, like, you can construct positions which you could never reach by the actual rules of chess. But how is that related to what this?
Well, because the state of the board, the state of the board is it maps to a Gödel number having to do with a proposition, having to do with propositions, right? And then the rules also have mapping to Gödel's numeric system. And so so everybody can envision the chessboard in a state that it could never arrive at I don't know. I had some examples, and I didn't write them down, but it had examples where the pawn had advanced beyond like its en passant position, and that kind of thing. So you could put the pieces in that state, but it would never be able to get to that state using the rules of chess from the initial axiom, the initial condition of the state.
Okay. And you're using this, like, this is an example because, like, you're saying in any formal system, not like there is that possibility of being in that certain state which cannot be reached there by trying to use the original axioms.
Yes, I think if I understood you right, yes, that's right. So
apparently this is one example. I don't know.
So
I'll have to stare at it longer too.
So
here.
So I would say Gödel didn't burn the house down, but he did prove that no matter how well you build the house, there's always going to be a room you can't enter. Right? That's the kind of a poetic way of saying it. So,
oh yeah, I can see that.
So what about the relevance to physics?
No matter what, yeah. The relevance to physics. Does that mean? So physics tries to explain the world. But
and it depends on math because the world is math. Yeah.
So
apparently the world is apparently the universe is a formal system and it's connected by rules. It's governed by laws. We call them laws of physics. So the question is now, could some physical truths be unknowable? Roger Penrose thinks that consciousness is one of those things. It's like it arises from non-computable processes. So what does it mean for physics? So I guess, kind of at first glance, Gödel's theorem might seem like a purely mathematical issue, but remember, physics depends on mathematics.
But really,
and if the
this affects everything.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's why it blows me away. So I'm trying to explain this. If the mathematics we use to describe the universe is incomplete, which it is, because Gödel proved that all formal systems are incomplete, then how complete can our picture of the universe really be? Physicists are not mathematicians. Like they're not interested in like dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's and that kind of all that stuff. But they do want their math to be right. The math that physicists use, they want it to be correct. And I don't even know that physicists really know about Gödel very much. I've talked to some of my friends and colleagues, and they've never even heard of Gödel.
They never heard of Gödel?
Yeah, it surprised me. I showed them so you have to show them the picture of him with Einstein, dressed like
and
the
then
gardener.
they're like, oh yeah.
They
still want to know who he is if they don't know who he is to start with.
Physicists, like mathematicians, are trying to build formal systems, a set of laws that express in mathematical language
but
in which all the behavior of the universe can be derived. But Gödel is telling us no matter how powerful those laws are, some of those truths are going to be beyond them. They're going to be, open to.
So what is the point?
Well, it raises, you're right. What's the point? It's an unsettling question. Could there be physical phenomena that are true but unprovable from within our current framework? So a lot of times you're going to hear people talking about the theory of everything.
Yeah, we talked about that on the show.
And then once again, string theory, which is
I know how you feel about string theory.
System that,
but like
so
well, I was gonna say the standard model that we talked about that bunch. We know that's incomplete. That is not a complete picture.
Appears to be incomplete. It appears that there are things that are true about it that we don't seem to be able to prove. And are there physical phenomena, dark matter, that we won't ever be able to connect to the physical world. So the line of thinking has influenced major voices. I mentioned Roger Penrose, and saying that consciousness, our human consciousness, I'm all over the place here, I know, but
well, I mean,
it evolves from it's not a computation, that how we think or understand truth escapes formal logic and algorithmic models, right? So others see parallels with quantum mechanics, where the uncertainty and indeterminacy and observation limits feel oddly compatible with Gödel's idea, and there are truths that cannot be derived internally. So quantum mechanics kind of surrendered to it. So we know that there's something going on in quantum mechanics that defies our understanding so far, and it's gotten so far that we've actually stopped asking the question. Like where does the stochastic thing that happens in quantum mechanics?
We accept the uncertainty as an inherent part without questioning why.
Right. So now, to be clear, Gödel's theorem doesn't say physics is broken. Right. So that's not what we're saying, but it does say that even a perfect theory will have limits. And I just, the only thing I wanted to say about it, we need to be modest in our thoughts. It's humbling. So even if we unlock the laws of nature, we will probably still be missing something, and that derives from. So you're making a funny face.
If we derive the laws of nature, we'll still be missing something, and there'd be laws of nature which basically we can never truly prove.
Yeah, one of the things that I didn't emphasize earlier, which I should have, was that Gödel just opened the door to a particular kind of statement about itself, which was manifestly untrue or true, depending on how you framed it, right? And so that was just one kind. But in the decades following, there have been mathematicians that have studied this and extended the theory, used different kinds of numbering systems to prove that there's virtually an unlimited, in a formal system, there's an infinity of true statements that are not provable from inside of the axioms of the formal system. And so that's just that. It's, I mean, to me, it's stunning. Okay, so it's something really to have a lot of discomfort about.
Yeah,
so,
and one example. Oops, not sorry.
Like I said, Gödel was a Platonist. What does that mean? Platonist is, so Plato believed that Plato believed that there existed, and exist is not the right word, an abstract eternal realm independent of human minds or formal systems. So to Plato, a circle, the concept of circle existed, even if nothing else existed, even if there was no universe, there exists in some manner of the use of that word, a circle or a sphere, or mathematical truths that existed. And Gödel bought into this, and he thought that mathematical truths existed in that abstract eternal realm, independent of the human minds or the formal system. So the mathematical truths are not something that we invent. They're things that we uncover, we discover. And I guess people get that for the most part. I guess we could have a discussion about that, whether that's true or not. But I believe that. I think that mathematics, in some respect, exists, or it has an essence that exists
independent of our actual. Like, we are not constructing mathematics. We are merely discovering what is already there.
We're discovering it. And and so let me try another provocative thing. That is objectively metaphysical, right? It's objectively if you buy into that, then that means that that's a metaphysical thing. That's something that exists outside of
us, of our brains, of
our brains, of the universe,
right?
Of everything in the universe. So the mathematical ideas, and so that's worth thinking about. It's worth having some private thoughts about, to discover how we discover it. So just like astronomers uncover planets that were always there,
right. Yeah, it's not like
there,
you
but
discovered a planet and it didn't exist before you discovered it. No, it was always there.
That's right. So
Right.
Gödel believed mathematicians uncovered truths that already exist, whether or not we can prove them or not. And so that's made the incompleteness theorem kind of beautiful to him. So it's not something to despair about. It's actually evidence of a reality beyond mechanical reasoning. Gödel's intense
I like how you just said
commitment.
that. It defines a
Yeah.
reality beyond mechanical reasoning.
Right. Make sure you write that down, because that
Reality beyond mechanical. Wow, that is quite poetic.
Yeah. So I guess Gödel's commitment to this kind of truth may have contributed to his isolation.
Yeah. So, how, like, going back to when I first started about how he just ended up starving to death after, I guess, his wife went to the hospital. How did his logician brain come to that? Like, just not eating.
I've asked this question. I've done some research on this question because it there was something wrong with him, but it may have been that this he believed in absolute eternal truths, unchanging, existing, but that kind of belief doesn't translate easy into the messy, uncertain world that people live in. And he might have saw what other people couldn't or wouldn't see, and that kind of clarity can be isolating. It could be that he saw too much, right? Maybe we aren't built to. Maybe. Let me think about this. How do I want to say this? Maybe biologically we're not built to face the idea that there are things that we can't prove. So the healthy mind. So we think we have healthy minds despite sometimes our behavior. We like to have, or we feel comfort. We get comfort in resolution, answers, conclusions. You hear people say, "I need closure on this,"
Yeah.
And but Gödel showed us that some truths lie beyond reach, not because we haven't tried hard enough, but because the structure of the logic itself will not allow you to visit those truths. And he saw that clearly.
I mean, I'm also reading here that his close friend Morris Schlick was murdered.
I didn't look into that. I did know about that, but I didn't look too much into that.
Like, apparently, just here. After his close friend Morris Schlick was murdered, Gödel developed obsessive fear of being poisoned and ate only food prepared by his wife. I doubt.
Right. I mean, at least he was able to develop a relationship with his wife. But what I'm trying to get at with him was, it's possible, and I'm just speculating because he's gone, right? And there was,
there was no God's existence. I did not know that.
Yeah, I'll touch on that if you'd like. But what I'm trying to say is maybe the clarity that he saw, about things that are unprovable contributed to his paranoia, right? It's like, I know intellectually the food isn't poisoned, but I know that also, maybe there are people out to get me because,
exactly.
He had an ontological proof. Ontological proof. Ontological proof. Is that what you're reading? Are you reading about ontological proof? Ontological
proof is a formal argument. Gödel's ontology is a formal argument by mathematician Kurt Gödel for the existence of God.
Well, not only Kurt Gödel, but St. Anselm and Leibniz.
Yeah.
And so it goes something like this, well, I imagine a perfect being. Okay, so perfection has to be part of existence, right? Something that's perfect must exist. That part is there's kind of like fine threads that are attaching that, or fragile threads that are attaching that. But that was St. Anselm. He used that as in the medieval times to prove that God exists. He says, so God, a godlike being, possesses all the positive properties, meaning it has to exist. One of those is it has to exist. And so Gödel he used something called modal logic. which is this thing. Is it, which has all of the logic things like if, then, else, so forth, or if this, then that. So, and then you can say, is it possible that, or is it necessary that? So that this is an essential part of the ontological proof that Gödel kind of formalized the proof that Saint Anselm produced. He didn't publish it. He never published it. It wasn't published until 1987, 88, sometime in that time frame.
14-point outline of his philosophical beliefs in his papers.
So, so anyway,
wow,
he may not have intended. He didn't really intend it. Probably didn't intend it as a theological advocacy. It maybe like an exercise, but it was consistent with his Platonic view. So it's a proof of something that has all positive values. Anyway, I think he can be.
2 days after Gödel, Ado, his wife, 2 days after Gödel's death, told Juan, I guess, was like a Chinese American logician, philosopher, and commentator in Gödel. Anyway, she told him that Gödel, although he did not go to church, was religious and read the Bible in bed every Sunday morning. Interesting.
Well, that's interesting. I hadn't read that. So he believed in absolute eternal truths that are unchanging, existing outside of the mind.
Plus, you could read all this and understand what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like a different language trying to read these proofs.
Oh yeah, it's awful. It's awful.
Like, what is this? This proves the existence of God, apparently, according to Gödel. So,
anyway, I guess maybe we can wrap it up. I mean, we've been talking for
too long or too
an hour.
short.
Yeah, this was supposed to be a half hour. I targeted a half hour.
Oh, really?
Okay.
I mean,
yeah.
I've seen these things go for an hour, given the
Gödel. This is like my final thoughts on all of this. This is Gödel's burden. Like he saw too much. He proved that truth outruns proof, and that even in the purest system, some things remain unsaid.
Truth outruns proof, even in the purest system.
Crave, as biological organisms, we crave completeness. Like a final theorem, light that fills the room.
I'm going to quote you here.
Right. He showed that there are corners that we can't reach. There are doors we can't open, and yet our minds are built for closure. And so maybe we shy away from what cannot be sealed down, or what cannot be sealed. So anyway, he looked at it anyway. He was like that when he was a little boy. They said, Mr. Y.
We live in a time obsessed with answers. Gödel proved that answers, even in the most perfect systems, can be out of reach. Not because we're dumb, but because truth is bigger than proof.
Who said that?
In the age of AI, algorithms, and mechanized thinking, his theorem is a warning. No matter how smart the machine, there are things it would never know.
Right. I guess that's enough. What do you think? That was a good show.
Yeah, that's a good quote that I just quoted.
What was that?
What was that? That's why Gödel still matters. I mean, in this world, right? We think we can figure out everything and develop smarter and smarter machines. But
anyway, hopefully this podcast will kind of stimulate people to know about this guy and how important he was to us today. So
yes, and also right. And check against overconfidence.
Yeah. The other thing is, he's a productive, it's a productive mind, but he was neuroatypical in the modern sense. He had issues.
Right. Some of the most brilliant minds have issues.
But that's all I guess that's all I wanted to say. I have a few notes here. Let me see if we covered enough.
We did. And the ending legacy and the quote, that I just did it.
Well done.
Well done, indeed. All right. With all that said, everyone, hopefully you guys if you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment. Or, like I said, you can go to patreon.com/SG2 in space, actually, and drop some comments there as well. And in the future, the idea here is, and Leonard's shaking his head.
No, I'm shivering with excitement about whatever you're going to say.
Shivering with excitement. All right. Yes, we're gonna do more things on there, and like I said, there may be some shorter videos that will be coming out on little topics. So please feel free to like, subscribe, and share this channel for sure. In this
subscribe, share. I think there's a bell you can ring or something. There's some kind of bell, so then you can find out when the next show is coming out.
Yeah, you could actually
make put your comments in there. Tell us what you think. I really would like to hear what people think, but I think a lot of times people are too shy, or they're afraid they're gonna
like I said, for those who are too shy to just openly post on YouTube, you could just go to the Patreon page and just post a comment there on the particular note. So,
right.
All right. With all that said, we will be back next week on another exciting topic, no doubt. So, with all that said, do you have anything to say, Leonard?
I would say shalom.
Shalom. Okay.
Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for stopping by. Thank you for stopping by. All right. So
what a loon.
What a loon indeed. I wasn't going to say
bye, people.
All right.
Thank you.
Everyone. Take care. Shalom. I think I said that right. Ending it.